Welcome to Ada Continues, episode 154, a weekly podcast posted up every Monday on adacontinues.com as an MP3, and a few days before that on youtube.com/adacontinues as a video, in which we talk about video games and related topics. I am your host, Stafa, if this is the first time watching or listening to the show, and as usual, I have different guest host on me on the show each week, and this week I have Multimedia Jay.
Howdy, folks. Long time no see.
How you doing, Jay?
Oh, so you finally got to the bottom of your guest host list, huh? Well, I'm glad you'll be able to start over after this. It's been, what, over a year?
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
Okay, I know. I gotta give myself more credit, so let me try working on that here. But anyways, it's good to be back, definitely. Even though we have all this new stuff like fiddling with Google and stuff and things like that.
Yeah, fiddling, more like wrestling with Google.
Yeah, body slamming and doing a few suplexes with Google too, but Google's pretty 800-pound gorilla-ish to begin with for this type of stuff.
Now, Jay, I believe you wanted to do the rapid fire interview questions again.
Oh yeah, I've been listening some of the podcasts in more recent months. I haven't been doing very well with my podcasts lately because I've been running around so much. So there was a time when I almost wasn't listening to hardly anything. But when I got back into it, one of them was Ada Continues, of course, and I noticed that the questions have changed, and they sound a little more interesting than the ones that I answered back when I started this all this stuff out. Like, you're not asking who would you like to have lunch with in the video game industry anymore, or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean that is definitely still one of the questions, but I mean I try to improve the show, so I figured I'd try to like make the questions a little better than what they were.
And this time
the desert island one's gone.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I'm getting them mixed up here. So. Yeah, that's what I meant. The desert island one. I mean, yeah, really. What you can't have internet on a desert island. I mean, that totally disenfranchises the MMO folks.
Yeah. So I guess we'll go over what our segments for this episode will include, and that will be the first one will be the rapid fire interview questions, since you want to do the most, Jay. The next one will be what have we been playing. Then we're going to have some quick announcements. Our main topic will be on retro game price gouging. And then we're going to have some news topics. So this is going to be a pretty jam-packed episode. First and foremost, I want to apologize to the listeners if I sound a little weird this week, because I'm having a cold. Last week, it was my younger brother, Ali. I recorded with him, and he had a cold, and I think I caught it from him because we recorded in the same room. Like a few days later, I woke up in the morning, and I had that sore throat that, when you feel like, it's like, man, I'm going to get sick because I got the sore throat this morning. And, yeah, I definitely got sick.
So if that kind of thing bothers you, make sure to watch the Google version where we all sound like we're underwater.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's get into the rapid fire interview questions. Jay, I believe you're probably the first guest host to do it twice.
I hope I don't start a trend. I apologize if everybody starts asking this after this.
I just want to remind the listeners. First and foremost, the rapid-fire interview questions are 5 questions I give to my guest hosts to introduce them to the show. But also, thanks to one of our listeners, Calvin, per his suggestion, I am opening the rapid-fire interview questions to any of the listeners. So if you want to answer the questions yourself, write into podcast at Ada Continues with your answers, and we'll read them on the show. So, anyways, Jay, you ready for the new set of questions?
Let the rapid fire redux begin.
All right. Number 1, your all-time favorite console.
I am a child of the 80s and 90s, which I know dates me nowadays, but I grew up with in the heydays of the original NES. So the original NES, hands down. I mean, I was all caught up in all that stuff. I was getting wired off of Nintendo Serial, watching those horrendously bad TV shows. Man, I had the whole Nintendo thing going back then. Super Nintendo had some really good RPGs, and then there was some classics on the N64 and stuff. But for me, even though I started with an Atari, the first console that really got me like, yeah, I want this for Christmas. Come on, Mom and Dad, give me this. The original Nintendo Entertainment System. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. Though I would argue the SNES was definitely the better console.
Yeah, well, it didn't blink all over the place. So. Yeah.
I mean, like the NES had tons of, but that question on its own. So let's move on to the three of your favorite franchises, or if it's not a franchise, then a single title would work as well.
Well, I mean, I've been playing Mario games for the last however many decades it's been, so definitely Mario games. I still like them nowadays, too, because when you play all the more quote-unquote serious games, as some folks would call them, sometimes you just get so into serious, dark, terrible, dismal, like realistic-ish games that a goofball cartoon plumber jumping up and down on mushrooms suddenly seems appealing. You gotta change things up. Definitely Mario, because of my Nintendo past. Nowadays, though, I'm kind of like a PC gamer more so than than console gaming. And as far as PCs go, I'm a big Elder Scrolls fan. Mostly the single-player stuff. I haven't even bothered with Elder Scrolls Online, and from everything I've heard about the game, I don't think I'm missing too much. So. Elder Scrolls, most definitely. Any kind of RPG where you can really mess around in, where there's a lot of stuff to do, where you can buy one game every several months instead of several weeks or several days, and stuff like that. And the third one I would have to say is, let's pick one that's online, because I play a lot of online stuff. I'm a big fan of the Guild Wars series because of the maverick approaches they take with online RPGs. The original Guild Wars was kind of a maverick in the days of EverQuest and stuff, and now you got Guild Wars 2, which kind of does its thing with World of Warcraft all over the place, and all these other games too, like Star Wars: The Old Republic. And but one thing I must say, though, I've been kind of a Guild Wars person on this show, but today's show, we will not be talking about Guild Wars 2. Promise.
Yeah, the last two times. That's what we're talking about.
We do what have we been playing? Let me tell you what I haven't been playing. I haven't really been doing too much in Guild Wars 2, except logging in when they release new content to have the chapter available. I kind of play games in waves, kind of bounce between game and game and game. So whenever I get back to Guild Wars 2, I'll be playing a lot of chapters in the story they've been doing lately.
Mm-hmm. All right. So here's the question that you don't like. If you could have lunch with anyone in the video game industry, who would it be?
Now, last time around I said Jeremy Soule for this because he's done the soundtrack to all kinds of games that I play. Nowadays, I'm not being a kiss up, I swear. I would definitely have lunch with Gabe Newell. Mm-hmm. No, seriously. I know how you're a big fan of his and whatnot, but some of the crazy ideas he's had with Portal and Half-Life, especially Portal, though. I mean, that game's practically a nerd monolith for geeks like myself. So I mean, especially the music and the story and the whole concept of a first-person shooter-ish puzzle game, that would have blown someone's mind back when that game first came out, because traditionally, the people that tended to play shooters versus puzzle games tended to be different, so bringing them together, I can't believe that combination worked. So,
yeah, pretty much, it made its own genre, pretty much. I mean,
it's crazy. I mean,
when you say puzzle game, you think of stuff like
Tetris, Jules, Dr. Mario, maybe even Angry Birds could count.
It's more like a problem-solving game rather than like a jigsaw puzzle. You know what I mean? So like
Gladys.
Yeah, so it made like its own genre pretty much, which I think is really cool.
And some of the Maverick stuff that he's talked about, like in-home streaming, I've actually tried, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of these technologies develop. So we did a whole episode. If you check way back in the backlog, like in the dark, dusty corners somewhere, you'll find the show that we called the Gabe Newell Special. But no, we talked about a lot of stuff there. Yeah, episode 75. That's way back. We're going back to 2 digits for that one. But yeah, it would be Gabe Newell, definitely.
Yeah, I mean we're gonna talk more about Gabe Newell later on during the news. So the next question: what's one problem with the video game industry
Not to
today?
sound like one of the guys from the Wall Street movie, but greed. I mean, you've got EA, the gigantic monolith that they are, buying up everything and then just sitting on top of these franchises they buy out. I mean, how many times have I heard about stuff like the Red Alert games or games that were better before EA dipped their fingers into the pie? So every single, basically, the out of control greed in this industry, especially as the competition has dropped. You've got all of these groups of huge companies just carving everything up and not competing as much. And next thing you know, you got stuff like, I believe, what was it, EA that practically put the Sims series, under lock and key. They threatened to not release the Sims 5 if Sims 4 didn't sell. Stupid stuff like that. Things that earn them the worst company in America award from the consumers, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Call
I
me
mean
old.
like for a while, like a lot of people hated Activision, but then EA just took the cake and ran with it as far
Call me
as.
Call me old school, but I liked gaming before we had things like Day One on-disc DLC and other assorted shenanigans like that. And then, of course, there's the whole used game market. What becomes the used game market on the PS3 in a couple of years when you can't get patches for the games anymore? And
Yeah.
unless you play on PC, the only option you have is to play the buggy original versions. Like when Skyrim released in 2011, Markarth, one of the major cities in the game, had a massive glitch. So what do you do when you can't get those patches anymore? I mean, there's just too much going on. And, these companies are too obsessed with money, and they're too obsessed with abusing the fact that they're doing stuff on the internet. And they can always patch stuff. We've talked about beta on release before on this show, too, another long-running problem. So, yeah.
Yeah, so final question. One reason why you game.
Hey, it's good, cheap fun if you play the right stuff. I mean, I went to college with a bunch of folks who were on shoestring budgets just like I was, and one of the differences between us, they're wondering, how do you have the money to buy computers and stuff like that and mess around with electronics and speaker systems and subwoofers, stuff like that? I'm like, well, it's because I'm not spending $30, $40 a weekend getting totally drunk every single night. I'm being a gaming nerd, and I'm buying one RPG every 3 or 4 months. So one of the reasons why I game is because my reasons have changed over the years, but it's such a practical hobby nowadays in terms of cheap entertainment. People complain that gas hit $4 a gallon, and in certain parts of the country, well, what do you know? You can just play a game at home instead of heading out for a bit or go for a run or something like that. But yeah, it's the practicality of gaming. That's one of the reasons why I play. Plus, it's fun, and I'm a geek and I'm into technology. So.
That makes sense. All right, so those are your second round with the rapid fire interview questions. And usually I tell my guest hosts that they become a man after they finish the question. So I guess this makes you, I don't know, double man, Superman, more man than human. I don't know.
I don't know what to think of that. I spilled my drink! No, that was random. We better move on with the show.
All right, so let's talk about what have you been playing. I usually let my guest host go first, so would you like to go?
Well, my first move as more of a man or whatever that was that I've just been promoted to, I actually want to hear about. What's this game that you're playing that you have in our notes?
Okay, so what I played this week was there's this game called Octodad: The Dadliest Catch. Have you heard of this game?
Oh, is this some kind of Steam special or something?
No, it's not really a Steam special. I mean, I talked about this game earlier on the show because I actually had one of the developers on the show with me because they were at Indie PopCon and I was at Indie PopCon, and we did a live podcast recording at Indie PopCon, and I was able to get another attendee or exhibitor from the show to record with me, and one of the Octodad developers volunteered to get on the show. So Octodad, and then I ended up buying the game and I played it. And basically, Octodad is it is a game on Steam. I mean, it's not on sale right now, but I mean, like whenever there's a Steam sale, it should be on sale. basically you play as Octodad, who is an actual octopus dressed up as a dad, and like for some reason everybody doesn't realize he's an octopus. They think he's just a regular guy just because he's wearing a suit and tie. That's it. And because he's an octopus, he's very ragdoll-y. Like you, it's like ragdoll physics to the max, and you control his limbs, and you can like make him wobble around, and you can pick things up, and it's basically a game that's, I mean, it's kind of like a physics puzzle game. You're trying like options like open the door, pick up the milk, give Sally milk for her cereal, and like so you pick up the milk and he's like wobbling around, and like you try and pour the milk and it's going all over the place, and so I mean it's a really goofy game. It's also it's pretty fun and short. It took me like 2 hours or so to beat the entire game. And recently, it was last week, well, I guess for the listeners it should be 2 weeks ago, they released their free called Octodad Shorts. And basically it's 2 new levels that aren't really tied to the main story. That their own separate scenarios. One in which Octodad is going on a date with the mom. This is before they get married. He's going on a date with her at a restaurant, and for some reason the other waiters think you're a waiter as well, probably because you're like wearing the same clothes. So you're trying to have a date and they're telling you to do stuff, and for some odd reason his girlfriend's like, she doesn't even care. She's like, okay, just be quick about it. Okay. The other scenario is the kids. They are basically telling a story about Octodad, and he is a nurse at a hospital. And I like this one more than the restaurant level because it was a lot more goofy. The kids are, they're telling what's going on, and they're just, as they're telling the story, more goofy things are happening. So that one was pretty fun, and I liked it. I mean, if you have Octodad already, you should definitely check out the Octodad Shorts because it's a free DLC. You have no reason not to try it out. And I mean, it was pretty fun. I liked it.
Yeah, see, the name is what ruins it for me because I hear Octodad and I think like the Octomom or the Octopus boss in Final Fantasy IV that was called Octomam. So, at least in the U.S. version. So.
Well, from what I remember, when this game first emerged, it came out at around the same time as Octomom, like the whole Octomom stuff was on the news.
Right.
And Octodad was originally it was originally like a college student project, and you can play the original Octodad. I think it's for free if you look up Octodad game. But Octodad Dadliest Catch, it's it's pretty much a sequel, and it's more fleshed out, more of a game than the first one was. But I mean, it's pretty fun. You should check it out. As some crazy, goofy ragdoll physics. You pick stuff up, and you can get stuck because of how wavy his tentacles are. Like there are times where I'm moving his leg. Like you use the I don't know how to play this on mouse and keyboard. I didn't even try, but like I used the controller, and you use the triggers. One is for one leg and the other is for the other leg, and you have to hold one down, and you can use the thumbstick to move the leg. So you move only one leg at a time, and you can like wrap the leg around like a pole or something like that, and you can literally get stuck because of the fact that your leg will get wrapped around stuff, and it's just really goofy.
It'd make a pretty good Kinect game from the sounds of it. Just kidding, Xbox folks. Don't throw something at me. Come on now.
Yeah. So I mean that's pretty much it as far as Octodad shorts. What have you been playing?
I've been Warcrafting it up with the pre-patch for Warlords of Draenor. Boo! I know. But here's the thing. I have been playing other stuff. It's just that you just happened to catch me doing a little Warcraft renaissance when you finally invited me back on the show. Earlier in the year, I was messing around with Shovel Knight, retro games, some other stuff as well, Burnout Paradises. But since we have Warlords of Draenor coming out next month, I figured I'd give Blizzard one last chance. And I mean it, too, because I know full well that this whole Smash Orcs' Faces In thing that they're doing for the next WoW expansion is because it's not only the 10-year anniversary of World of Warcraft, but 20 years of the original. And the original Warcraft games are a big part of the reason why I even play this in the first place. I actually had a sitter when I was growing up whose then baby son learned how to say yes from all the Alliance footmen going, "Yes, my lord, yes, my lord." So the original RTSs, yeah, it's kind of cool. They're kind of pulling a Disney here. You know how Disney re-released all their DVDs of all their 90s movies in the 2000s, so all the kids could see them and stuff that weren't around back. This is kind of what they're doing, because you get guys like Chris Metzen at some of these developer things that wind up on YouTube or on DirecTV or something. You get him at all these Blizzard events. He's up there. He's like, "Yeah, man, I can't believe that we've been doing this stuff for 20 years. Have you really been doing this stuff for 20 years? Man, I feel old." So so I'm looking forward to this to see what they do with it, because they do have the 20-year anniversary thing, and for crying out loud, the day of the Pokemon fights and the dancing pandas being the main focus of the game, that just went. They should have gotten rid of that a long time ago. It's good to see Warcraft actually getting Warcrafty again.
Nice. And they're doing like a graphical update, right? Or have they done that already?
Yes. The new models for all the original races are in there. Only the Blood Elves are, and the Draenei from Burning Crusade. The Blood Elves are in the process of being updated. The other models are actually newer, so I don't know if they'll update them anytime soon. A lot of the reason why they're doing this was to upgrade the graphics for these models and bring them up to par with the newer stuff they have in the game. The newer stuff they have in the game right now, like the Goblins and the Worgen and the Pandaren and stuff. But yeah, I mean, another good thing that this has done is I'm actually playing my main character again, because they've simplified some of the game mechanics. One of the things that Blizzard likes, that I've noticed they like to do, anytime WoW gets some competition of any sort, they want to try and get ideas from that competition. So we had Warhammer Age of Reckoning back when it came out. I don't even think it's around anymore, but when Warhammer Age of Reckoning came out, they had this developer on there doing one of their YouTube videos going, "Everybody fights! Everybody does damage in Warhammer." Next thing you know, you're seeing free spell damage for healers in Burning Crusade and stuff like that. There's some stuff like scenarios in Mists of Pandaria that was Gesundheit. There was oops. Well, there was. I always thought scenarios in Mists of Pandaria were a response to Guild Wars 2. Hey, what do you know? Scenarios are going away, except for part of the questing experience. So one of the things that they're doing is they simplified a lot of the moves. Gone are the days. They're probably going to kill the market for special World of Warcraft gaming mice with like 15 buttons on it. So. You don't need to make heavy use of your shift and control keys anymore. I think they're taking some hints from League of Legends and some of these more action-oriented games where it's not the sheer number of skills that make it interesting, but how you use what you have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So one of the big things they did was for Retribution Paladins, which I had my main, which is a Ret Paladin, on the shelf for pretty much all of Mists, because one of the dumb ways in which they added depth they didn't need to add was through buffs like Inquisition, which is a thing that you would basically, the way it worked was click this button every 2 minutes whenever you're fighting stuff in order for your damage to not be lousy. That was it. There was no skill involved. You just had to watch a timer and push the button every 2 minutes. Well, that skill is gone, and other skills that are like are gone. I hope they take away slice and dice for combat rogues too, because really that's it. I mean, whoop-de-doo, you can glance away every couple of seconds and check a timer in the middle of a fight. How skillful, you know. There's other ways to add depth to the combat system besides that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
I'm looking forward to it. They're going to put more RTS elements in there, too. Like, you're going to have your garrison, which is their way of implementing player housing. I've been in the beta since September for this game, and they could tweak a few things here and there, but another interesting thing they're doing is the story behind it. Why on earth we go into Draenor, which is in the past? People thought it'd be like some kind of time travel thing. It's like the Blizzard equivalent of alternate 1985 from Back to the Future Part 2. It's basically an alternate timeline version of Draenor, but they at least get to bring the stories and the lore alive in the game engine and bring that to life and bring some experiences of that too. Makes me wonder how many more expansions they're going to make like this, because there's so much in the Warcraft history that they could probably make a couple expansions just off of stuff like this. But I don't think they're going to do that. I hope they get their act together though, because Mists was kind of dumb. So the whole panda thing and everything like that. And there's some issues with their leadership right now, where they don't think the subscribers are going to go back up, even when they get more Warcrafty and people who like the rest of the series get back into the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's an unwritten rule when you're trying to sell stuff. If you don't believe in what you're selling, people are going to somehow sense that, and they're not going to buy. They're not going to buy it. So, especially since they just they freed up all this talent by canceling the Titan project. If there's people that don't think that there's any life left in the game, they should be shuffled somewhere else at this point, because it's not the only reason why this game would die at this point would be if they let it. I mean, there's more than enough material they can go off of to keep it going, even though it is pushing 10 years old now, but even that's just a milestone in and of itself.
Plus, they still have a very large subscriber base, right? Like
like 6 million, and they had a couple 100,000 come back when once the release date was announced. They're getting back into things with the pre-patch.
Yeah, like whenever my friends who play MMOs, whenever a new one comes out, like Final Fantasy 14 Rebirth or what's that one, WildStar, something like that.
Oh yeah.
Like whenever one of those come out, they're like, "Oh, this is it. This is gonna be the game changer. We're gonna move to this." They talk about it for like a month or two, and then they go back to World of Warcraft.
Well, that's because a lot of these folks are you can't just copy World of Warcraft and make a successful MMO. I mean, even World of Warcraft is dated. There are some things that they need to there are some things that they need to fix, and we've talked about this sort of thing before. All this second generation type stuff, like the dogged insistence on subscription fees versus more microtransactions and stuff like that, and things along those lines. But there's also some very big plot holes in the game as it exists right now. Stories that haven't been tied up yet, like in Cataclysm there was the Maelstrom in the middle of the map. What's going on there? Whatever happened to Queen Ashara? There's other stuff too. There's all kinds of loose ends that they could tie up in future expansions too. So it's not like they're anywhere close to running out of material.
Like when WildStar came out earlier this year, I had friends that were so dead certain that it was going to be the World of Warcraft killer. Like even after it came out and they're saying that this game is amazing and all that, I was like, just in 2 months, you're not going to be talking about WildStar anymore. And lo and behold, none of my friends are talking about WildStar anymore.
Yeah, I remember seeing that on the forums back before it launched. They were like, "WoW equals waiting on WildStar." But if you rewind the clock several years, it becomes waiting on Warhammer instead. Mm-hmm. No. Yeah, basically, if you like Warcraft, you're going to like this game. So if you liked the RTSs or the story behind them or any of the bravado that Blizzard likes to put in their stuff, how everything's always amped up and the paladins are always wearing woefully impractical armor or something like that, if you're into that fantasy off-the-charts type stuff, you're always going to keep coming back to a game like this just because of the quality of the source material. Even before they messed with MMOs, they had Warcraft 3, which was phenomenally successful, and then the previous 2 Warcrafts in the DOS days. I mean, there's history behind this. It almost makes me wonder why Warhammer Age of Reckoning had issues the way it did, but I think some of that comes from just taking the franchise and letting a third party run with it instead of keeping it in-house. So who knows? Maybe we'll see a Nintendo MMO one of these years. in like 2100 or something. I don't know. You know, but
I doubt it. I highly doubt it. They can't get regular online. They can't figure regular online out, so I highly doubt that they'll get like an MMO.
Yeah. Kill 10 boars. Toss 10 friend codes. Moving along.
Yeah, let's move on. Before we get into our main topic, I want to talk about DreamHost real quick. Give them a plug because they're a web service that I use for OutItContinues.com and my personal portfolio. They have unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth, user-friendly interface, and they're optimized to use content managers such as WordPress, which is the most popular content manager on the internet right now, and Content 5, which is also a pretty easy to use WYSIWYG content manager, and many more features. All that just for $8.95 US a month. If you use the promo code OUTOFContinues, that is one word, no spaces, just OUTOFContinues, it will waive the setup fee and get you a free domain registration. So you should check that out if you want to start your own website, start your own podcast, start your own whatever. Bam. Couple quick announcements before we move on. First of all, we can definitely use more iTunes reviews. If you have not left an iTunes review and you want to help out the show, please leave an iTunes review. It would really help us out because it's one of the single most helpful things you can do for the show, because a podcast, even with low ratings, will get it'll get higher on the charts, the iTunes charts. It'll get higher on the charts than a podcast with no ratings at all. And also, the way how iTunes works is Apple, they pretty much go by a week-by-week basis as far as the ratings and reviews. So they basically only care about this week and that's it. So like my reviews that I got from like last year, they don't care about those. They only care about the ones that I got this week. So if you can leave an iTunes review, please do so. That would really help us out. If you cannot leave an iTunes review and you still want to help out the show, give us a like on Facebook, share us on Facebook, or share us on Twitter or Tumblr. Any means of social media. Tell a friend about the show, and it would really help us out. So that's one announcement. The other announcement is this past week I was unable to record my podcasts for The Flash and Arrow because I've been doing that as a side project. You can find that at outitcontinues.com/TV podcasts, and we were able to do the first 2 episodes of this season of Flash and Arrow, but this past week my co-host Eric was out of town, so he was unable to record. We should be able to be back this coming week, so I apologize if any of you were looking forward to that podcast. We're just unable to do the recording, but we should be back on track this coming week. So apologies on that part. So let's move on to our main topic. Jay, you got like a ton of notes on this, so I'm going to let you take the steering wheel.
Yeah, so I do have a ton of notes, but it's basically so if we couldn't think of anything to say, we just read them, but it's like a really bad PowerPoint. Yeah. Anyways, so what we wanted to talk about was retro game price gouging. This has kind of been like the issue of the year for me because last summer I stumbled across some channels on YouTube where people hunted old retro games and saw these absolutely seedy and cheesy flea market dealers that were like ripping people off for the prices of PlayStation 2s, Super Nintendos, things like that. I mean, we're talking about common NES games being sold for like $10 each or something along those lines, when virtual console editions of those games be like 5 in Nintendo points on the old Wii. And the prices have been opened up on the new Nintendo eShop, but even though the prices are open now, yeah, basically if there's money to be made, some folks try to make it by any means necessary. So I call them retro game ruining ripoff resellers, and yes, I know that's a lot of ours. I tried actually doing a vlog on my YouTube channel about this kind of thing during the summer when I was looking into all this and doing some deal hunting on my own. But due to the informality of my vlog series, I didn't really stay on the topic, so I don't think it really served its purpose. I will be doing a rant series at some point. I don't know when, but it'd be nice to go over the main points here first. So all the Ad Continues listeners, you're going to be able to hear this stuff first before before the audience I have on YouTube does. So.
Awesome.
So cool, we get to hear this before all 2 people that still watch what I know. A good question for this would be, have you run into any of this sort of thing? Like, have you been looking at either prices on the internet or prices at flea markets or prices in reseller stores or something, and you just been like, wait, what? How is this possible?
It's actually been a long time since I've looked at the prices of retro games because I haven't been collecting them for a long time. I had a big collection a while ago, and I want to say like 08, like 2008 is like I ended up selling pretty much my entire collection of physical media because a lot of them were just collecting dust, and I wasn't really playing them, and I needed the money at the time. So, but when I was into collecting, I was really into it, and I would go around, like used game stores or flea markets, and I noticed that, like, especially the NES games, they would be absurdly expensive. It's like, $40 for some, NES racing game, which I just felt like that's just way just more expensive than I'm even willing to pay.
And how long ago was this? Because from there's a lot of rants on this sort of thing on YouTube. You can actually just type it into YouTube, retro game prices, and you'll get about 6-7 rants and vlogs about the thing. But it's actually a relatively recent phenomenon, despite the fact that we're talking about consoles from the 80s, 90s, maybe even the 70s in the case of the original Atari. But a lot of these consoles they've been gone for a very long time. Yet the high prices are like last couple of years when things really started taking off. I mean, I know I bought a few retro games during the 2000s, and I definitely remember that prices for games like Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, and Paladin's Quest and stuff were a lot less than what we see nowadays. There's a lot of reasons why I think that's happening, but we'll get to those later. But so what timetable are we talking about?
I mean, it was sometime within the past 10 years. I mean, I can't really tell you for sure, but I mean, it was before 08 when I sold everything off that I was actually looking at these games. But I mean, it was a flea market that was selling these games at like $40 or whatever, and
yeah.
So it probably wasn't the best place to look for those type of games to begin with.
You see, when it comes to flea markets, when I was growing up, I could always count on the flea markets being about a decade behind. So the NES was largely an 80s console. There were some games in the 90s, but for the most part, the Super Nintendo took over around 1991 or so here in the U.S. But the NES was the NES and even the Atari, you'd still find them at flea markets in the 90s. So these consoles have been, if you want to talk about stuff being rare or vintage or something like that, they've been that way for a long time. But how come only now are we seeing all the screaming and hollering about cartridge prices and stuff like that? Like, it's actually, I was looking on some forums about this too, besides the usual poking around on YouTube, looking for videos where people rant about this stuff. And actually, one of the local resellers who runs a small independent game shop which is good because it's great to have alternatives to GameStop for secondhand stuff around here, but they got blasted in this forum, and I think they might have even gotten banned because someone walked into their store and saw Mario 3 on the NES, $25, loose cart.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Virtual Console version of Mario 3, you can save your progress with the autosave thing if you want to play through the game that way. or you can get Super Mario All-Stars or something like that, and have a save battery built in, or play something newer or something along those lines. But yeah, $25 for an NES game, loose cart, and it's not even close to being rare. It's one of the most successful NES games of all time. Everybody and their mother's uncle had Mario 3. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like Flintstones Dinosaur Peak or anything like that.
Yeah, it was I believe it wasn't the best-selling NES game, so there's definitely a lot of copies of it out there.
See, the problem with this is a relatively recent one. The people that are doing this stuff, they basically ruin retro collecting for any like younger folks who weren't around for these systems, or even when they were relatively recent and people didn't start playing these pricing games. Folks want to check out these platforms that we talk about, like the NES, or even these Famiclones out there, like the Super Retro Trio or the Retron 5 that play these old carts. If they want to actually check it out with the hardware instead of messing around with emulators, they go looking, and they find all these people that are just, you're talking about paying more for old, really old cartridges, sometimes in not so good condition, than Steam games. So, I mean, most of where I've seen these kinds of things going on with YouTube videos and people ranting about it or taking spy cams with them when they go shopping to see who's doing it in their communities, it's usually flea markets or independent game shops, which it depends on who's running it. You may have some people that love the hobby and want to sell things for an okay price, but then you got the people that are just a flea market reseller who just decide to stop selling out of the back of their van or something. So it's just a cosmetic step up. And the thing is, though, some of these resellers, they're not even interested in gaming as much as they're interested in profit. They're more regular collectors who want to try and flip stuff to make money off of it. And it's not so much about, say, something like a Castlevania game might be nostalgic to some people or interesting to some other people who weren't around or something like that. Net effect of this, it ruins yard sales and even some thrift stores, because if you're not there, sometimes you have to be there before the advertised opening time to not arrive to the place having been picked clean, and there's nothing there but like ancient sports games or something like that. So you basically, whereas before you could have went to these yard sales and bought stuff at an okay price, now the gougers get there before you. They pick the place clean, and you got to deal with them.
Man, that sounds brutal.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about people who, I mean, one of the channels that I've been watching a lot of, these guys go out and they're out in Arizona, so there's a lot more wide open space than here in the Northeast or out in Indiana or anything. So they got these big roads, 75-mile-an-hour speed limits. Everything's flat, so you don't feel like you're going fast. They're driving around all over the place in these states that are way bigger than, say, a Connecticut or an Indiana or something like that, or they're driving all over the place, and there's a yard sale that says the Craigslist thing said don't show up until 8. They show up at 7:30, and it's already been picked clean by someone that got there before them. So, yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, this makes me wonder if this like price gouging phenomenon that's been happening, within the past few years that you mentioned, is this happening because of the fact that most of these like secondhand game stores like GameSpot, EB Games, whatever, like they no longer carry old games. I mean,
That's part of it.
There was one store it was connected to Hollywood Video. I think it was called Game Crazy. And they were one of the last larger chain stores that carried retro games, but then around the time that I decided to get rid of my my collection, they were pretty much trying to get rid of all of their old cartridges, so they made them super cheap. And at this point, if you want to find a store that sells cartridge old cartridge games, it's gonna be it's not gonna be a chain store. It's gonna be a mom and pop singleton.
Yeah, and that's another thing that it does too. It adds an unnecessary, I call it monkey in the middle, if you ever played that old game in grade school, but it adds an unnecessary monkey in the middle between buyer and seller. I wish I should probably just say middleman and be more professional, but I just couldn't help but think of the old childhood recess game where you're trying tossing a ball, someone's jumping in the middle trying to catch it, but that's really kind of the conduct of what these people do, because they do kind of jump in and try and intercept stuff that would normally travel between buyer and seller. But instead of the buyer getting to pick up an older game for a decent price, like I used to do when I was growing up, and we'd go to yard sales or flea markets and buy, and this is before there were game stores, so the whole supply and demand, whether or not GameStop has it, was completely irrelevant because there was no GameStop. You'd go to your yard sales. Sometimes you'd drive around all day just seeing if anybody had anything worth selling. But instead of the buyer getting to pick up these older games for decent prices, now they have to fork over significantly more from someone who just wants to flip games, and in some cases doesn't even care about them. They might be like someone who's used to selling antiques or something, and they just want to mark things up and sell them again. And then what this does, of course, the old market sometimes gets a little nasty with this type of thing. For the remaining ethical resellers out there who actually want to sell games at decent prices, now they're pressured to raise their prices, because if they're too far below the gougers clean them out, mark it up 20% or whatever, and resell them. I think honestly that's a bubble waiting to burst. So,
when I was getting rid of my collection, I decided to sell. I was selling my games like all over the place, like a few games to local shop, Disc Replay. I tried selling a few games on eBay, tried games on Craigslist, just to see which one would like get me the most money. And like on Craigslist, I put up my Nintendo 64 and the collection of games I had, and I pretty much I had like I don't know, like 15 or so games, and they were pretty much like the best of the best. Like I had GoldenEye, Zelda Ocarina of Time, Mario 64, Conker's Bad Fur Day. Like pretty much the best stuff. It was in that collection, and I put that whole bundle on Craigslist for $100. And I had a guy contact me online. He ended up coming over. Well, first, before he came over, he asked me, hey, since you live a little far away, you mind taking like $10 or so off the price, because that's going to be gas money right there? It's like, my problem. No, I'm not taking $10 off. And then when he did come over, the little lid on the N64 where the memory pack goes.
Oh yeah,
the lid was missing, but I did have the memory pack in there. And he's like, "You didn't tell me that's missing. Can you take off $5? Because that's going to cost me $5 to get that replaced."
See, I already know that this guy was probably seedy, because the Conker's Bad Fur Day can get you close to $100 now.
Yeah, I was like, this game right here is $30 online. This game right here is $35 online. I was like, I should be asking more than $100, but I just want to get rid of this and ASAP and get some money quick. And like he was, all right, and then he like whipped out this big wad of hundreds, or like just gave me $100. And then he like on his way out, he saw that I had a Xbox 360. He was like, "You selling that too?" I was like, "Actually, yes, I am." Because at that time, I was wanting to get rid of it because I had 2 red rings.
Yeah.
And I just got that back from the getting it repaired for the red ring, and there was only 2 months left on the the 3-year warranty. So I wanted to get rid of it just so that I don't have to bother with red rings anymore. I want to switch over to PS3. So I was like, yes, that is on sale. And like without even like hesitation, he gave me what I was asking for, which I can't remember what it was, but like he just whipped out the money. It's like you're so quick to give me the money for the 360, but like for this bundle of N64 games, you wanted to like, shave off
Oh.
$5 here, shave off $10 there. Whatever.
Yeah, I only wish I could get Conquerors for 30. I mean, nowadays you're talking, you got some of these games out there that are like 130 just for the cart, loose, regardless of the condition. Because, oh, but it's rare, vintage, da-da-da. Maybe we should get into some of the sources of this problem, though, and also I can hear some of the critics already starting to type up their hate mail, so we probably should talk about some of this stuff, because I know they'd bring it up. One of the reasons why I want to talk about this is because I've gone to the rants that I mentioned earlier, and I keep seeing the same 5 or 6 people saying the exact same stuff again just to troll in the comments section. So we better talk about cause and effect stuff really quickly before this. Anyways, some of this is due to supply and demand. Any kind of exchange of goods is subject to supply and demand. It's a basic market force, but the internet trolls are like, oh, look, someone complaining about expensive retro games. Guess they're discovering supply and demand for the first time. No, there's more to the story besides just supply and demand, though. So mostly older hardware and cartridges is where I've been seeing this, because eventually stuff, even the well-built consoles, the 80s and 90s with no moving parts, like the disc-based stuff we've had since the original PlayStation. I mean, these things fail. More and more of this stuff, it fails. It gets thrown like that. Someone doesn't know what they have and they just junk it. It's crazy. And every single time that happens, it reduces the available copies because this stuff's all out of print. So there is an element of supply and demand here. Some of these games are hard to find, but sometimes you got to ask, why are they hard to find? Are they hard to find because of how long they've been out of the mainstream as far as what's hot, what's current? Or are they hard to find because you got a small group of people just grabbing whatever's left and then forking it out for top dollar to anyone who wants it? So there are some elements of supply and demand here because we're talking about older systems. Some of this I also think comes from people watching too much reality TV. You remember back in the day when reality shows were all about chemistry and relationships and not getting voted off the island, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays you've got all these way more practical shows that are giving people way too many ideas. They'll watch too much American Pickers, they'll watch too much Pawn Stars or Antiques Roadshow, and they think, hey, everybody can do that, right? And so you see not only on the shows themselves, like someone walks in with something they think's worth a ton of money, and they're like, yeah, it's junk, we're not going to buy it. But they think everybody can do that on the what's on those scripted, often souped up for entertainment shows, no matter how much hurts folks' wallets.
Yeah, those are scripted. Like I mean, as much as I find Pawn Stars entertaining, they will literally bring in the same person to sell different items on separate episodes. It's like, oh, this is the same guy that they showed earlier this season. Coming back again.
That's the thing people forget with television again and again and again. There's always an entertainment element to it. Same thing with news. That's why if it bleeds, it leads. It's not that everybody needs to know there was a huge car accident on the freeway and there's a giant chunk of scrap metal, that's getting shoveled off the road. But I mean, it gets people all worked up and they all go around talking about it. So hey, what do you know? The news media, the newscasts get ratings. Let's put that out in front. Leading off our stories tonight, another shooting or giant car accident or huge house fire, something like that. So, television has its role in here, but also the internet. The angry video game nerd has caused some of this. It's called the nerd effect. James Rolfe flips his lid about something like Silver Surfer Action 52. What do you know? The secondhand market cranks up the prices because people are seeking the game out to actually play it. Is it really as bad as the nerd says it is? It's stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, there's the rest of YouTube as well, with the overabundance of game reviewers and commentators who want the carts just for show. I got a little snarky with our notes for this one with some of the like fail-speak language and stuff, because we know everybody has to sit in front of a huge shelf of NES carts that they never play on every single video on YouTube. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, just check out my big collection right behind me.
Oh yeah, all those invisible NES cards. But you got all these people out there. They're buying all these games off these really old systems. It's hard. There is an element of supply and demand here. But my question is, how come the supply is low? Is it because everybody wants to have a wall of NES cards because that's some rite of passage? Does everybody have to look like Pat the NES punk or something? Hey, look at this big room full of games. Yeah, how often do you play them? Yeah. I just collect. Makes you wonder when you cross the line from zealous gamer to, hey, I'm trying out for hoarders.
Hold on a second. I gotta share my collection. Give me
While you're loading that up, gotta love when some I joke about this all the time. You know how you watch some of these game reviewers and stuff like that, and they're like 1920 or something like that.
Yeah.
And
here's my wall of games.
Yeah, Steam.
There we go. Don't need cartridges here.
Or is that your backlog? Yeah, you gotta love it when you get like some 19 or 20-year-old wannabe retro gamer, trying to pass himself off. Oh, I'm a big 80s gamer when there was no way they're anywhere near old enough to have been around. Especially when they screw up Super Mario Brothers 2. When they're like, oh, I still haven't forgiven Nintendo for Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah, people who wanna like just rant about Super Mario Bros. 2 are just doing it because of the people on YouTube who did it. Who was it? Irate Gamer who did it first. I mean, like nobody complained about Super Mario Bros. 2 back in the day. Everybody just thought it was another Mario Bros. Game.
Yeah, when you didn't know that they would go back to the formula from Mario 1 and Mario 3. I insisted on having Mario 2 at my first NES. I would not have liked my first NES if it didn't come with Mario 2. That's the thing. You could play as more characters besides just Mario. I like that there was no timer. I like that you just mess around in the stages and stuff like that. Yeah, sure, it was different than the original Mario, but we didn't know
backwards.
That. Say, oh yeah, go to the left. Have a little Metroid moment back when you only went to the right and it didn't scroll back.
It was a fun game. Like, no, there's no need to complain about it.
But that hasn't stopped some supposed gamers whose entire gaming history consists of reading the heck out of Wikipedia going, ugh, Doki Doki Panic, I hate Mario 2. So...
I like that accent that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
the last source of this problem...
I get what you mean about that, though.
Yeah, it's annoying because those of us that were around for that know that that's not the case, and yet we got an entire group of fired up fanboys out there that their view on gaming history is getting shaped by this stuff. The last source of this problem, human ignorance. Yeah, tear down the walls of ignorance. We must do more of that. You know the old rule, oh, it's worth what someone will pay for it. Well, people don't know what they have, or people don't know what they can get what they want for whatever price, and they get gouged because they don't know any better. Yeah, that needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
So the common related issues that I keep seeing again and again related to this problem. The big one, offline gougers wanting online prices. You go out to some yard sale and, well, it's worth this much on eBay. So, oh, man, do these folks not get that when you go anywhere that's not on the internet, you're burning gas to do that, and the money associated with that, putting wear and tear on your car. If you're in a more expensive part of the country, you just burn $4 a gallon gas just to see if they have anything. The odds are the gas you burn to drive somewhere, unless you're going on like a bike or something, the gas you burn, especially if you're in a rural area like where I'm from, the gas you burn will always be more than a shipping fee if you buy something off the internet. And you might not even find anything. Something that people like to forget is that eBay prices, they usually include administrative, PayPal, and other sorted fees. So if you want to use eBay as a price guide at all, which you shouldn't, but in case you do, you should take the number that it gives you and cut it by 20%. That would be an appropriate offline price. So take your $10 game and make it $8 if you're selling it at a yard sale or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
This is what everyone asks. What's the point of paying internet prices offline when you can just pay the internet price and some flat shipping amount, which is often less than the gas costs of going somewhere, and not have to leave the house? Seriously. Then there's the whole condition
Well,
thing.
and
We'll get
some,
to that in a minute.
I mean, depending on the store, they can play the game in front of you to show you that it works, while if you order online, you have no clue if it works at all or not.
Yeah, and that's when you check out the returns policy and stuff. And that's why I usually order from, say, someone who's running a store who has a reputation to protect. Like, I get more of my online games from, like, a JJ Games or an eStarland or something like that than from random folks on eBay. Matter of fact, last time I ordered from a random person at Amazon Marketplace, the save battery was dead, the sticker was torn off the back, the condition was just awful. I ordered the exact same game from JJ's, and this guy actually cleaned it up, and it was actually looked presentable. It actually looks like a game that I might have had since childhood. So it's totally. You just gotta, but buyer beware applies anywhere here.
Yeah, like since you mentioned the whole cleaned up cartridge and all that. I mean, you mentioned on one of your videos that something about if you something about if you're not willing to clean up the item, there's no point in reselling it, something like that. And that totally holds true because I mean I worked at a car dealership for a while, for like a couple of years, and I was a detailer at that place, and like I'd clean. Sometimes they'd have me clean new cars, like basically just take the sticker off the window, give it a quick wash, vacuum, because we just sold the car. But as far as like trade-ins go, people would trade in their car. It would be a complete mess, and we'd give it like a full detail, like shampoo the carpet. There'd be a bunch of gunk and sometimes spare change in between the seats and stuff like that. Completely vacuum the whole thing out, give it a buff and a wax and everything. Just doing as much to it as we can to make it look more presentable, and that by itself makes the car look worth more than what it was traded in for.
Yeah, that's an old Donald Trumpism, as I like to call it. I was actually watching The Apprentice years ago, season 1, I think. He said, "Why do people try to sell cars dirty? You can clean it up really nice and get an extra couple $100. If you sell a car that's dirty, you're a loser." I'm like, guy's got a point. I guess some of the backlash that you get from the resellers on this, though, is going to be, oh, well, I'm only going to be selling this for $10. Is my time really worth cleaning this old SNES cart that's probably going to sit around until someone buys it? That you'll probably get that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, cleaning up an old cartridge does not take very long at all, and it definitely makes it not only look more presentable, but you don't have to blow in it or whatever to make it work. It should work right off the bat.
Yeah.
But by the way, blowing is not the best way to make a game work.
Yeah, it's more like a placebo effect, as science has proven. It's more
burping. Burping's the secret.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about. I thought you were one of these crazy people that use brass polish or something. No. I've heard about people brassoing their NES games and eating away the boards. So.
I see people who go just like just blowing their whole lungs out several times, and it's like, check this out, and then it'll work. Magic.
You know what I used to do? I used to actually open up the Nintendo and move the card around inside and hit the reset thing, because the problem was with the connector to begin with. So if you just moved it inside and kept hitting reset until the game started up, that would usually take care of it. Not as much blowing necessary. Blowing was kind of something that we did just because we thought it worked. So.
Well, like everyone said blowing. Yes. Then my friend Adam told me to burp, and I was like, "You gotta be kidding me!" And I did it, and it was magic.
Oh,
maybe it actually doesn't do anything, but it works every time, 100% of the time.
You know, this is reminding me of that kids react to old video games thing that popped up a while back, where they're actually showing these little like 4-year-old kids or like teenagers, something like that. Anyway, it's people that weren't even close to being able to be around for the heyday of the NES, and they were showing them how we used to blow on games and stuff. I'm like, you really had to do that? So, but yeah. More related issues, though, related to this, since we're talking about what state carts are in, is when the gougers don't care about the condition. That's one that I've seen locally. The reseller shop that got roasted for the $25 Mario 3, I actually probably got lowballed all over the place on my Zelda Ocarina of Time. Of course, it wasn't in great condition. It was a GameStop special secondhand when I bought it. The label was terrible, and the back label was torn, so it wasn't in great condition. But the issue I have is that they bellyached about the condition, but then if you looked around their store, they flat-priced everything, regardless of the condition. So it wouldn't matter what shape each copy of whatever game you're looking at was in, it would all be roughly the same price in nearly all cases. And so the net effect of that is they get picked clean by the pickers too. You go over there, you got all these NES carts with no labels or something like that, or it's yellowed from tobacco smoke, or you got all these newer games for the Wii or the Wii or the Xbox 360 with no labels. Someone just hand wrote what the game was on some little piece of paper they stuffed in there, but yeah, when they don't care about condition, I mean, oh well, this is little Samson. Who cares if it looks like someone ran it over with a four-wheeler back in the day? Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And we mentioned this before. Another problem is when gougers they're collectors more than gamers. They don't realize that there might be people that actually just want to play the game. They're not really looking to flip it on eBay or something. So you get people that are used to flipping antiques and collectibles, and they bring all that baggage to retro gaming now. And probably the last source of the last related issue is when complete inbox confused with loose carts. There's not enough of a distinction with the pricings right now. The prices are too close together. Now I'd agree with some of these high prices if it was complete inbox or even a sealed copy, but the fact remains that there's not enough of a difference between these more collector-like, I'm not going to play the game, I'm just going to have it on my shelf and maybe try and sell it again in a couple of years, and people that actually still want to pop these things into their systems and actually play them and experience them. Mm-hmm. Some of these high prices would be appropriate for that, but to many retro gamers, it would never cut it. Just call loose cart rare, even if the game didn't hardly sell back in the day. The good news is, though, this sometimes works out in consumers' favor when the tables get flipped, and instead of paying a complete in box price for a loose cart, you pay a loose cart price for complete in box.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess you don't have too much. You don't really have too much in this because you've been out of the loop for a while.
I mean, like I personally, I mean, like back when I was into collecting, it was mainly that I don't know, like I liked playing a lot of the games, but it was also like I liked the collection. Like, oh, check out all these games I own, and like lately especially with digital distribution. Like I feel less of a need to like have the physical game anymore, and there are just so many ways to play like retro games now. I mean, whether they're being re-released, on digital distribution, through like Virtual Console, PSN, Xbox Live Arcade, Steam, whatever. I mean, there's tons of ways to have access to games, and not only that, but I mean, there are people who really love retro games, but they'll still just straight up emulate the game, just because it's like, why pay $10 or $15 for a Virtual Console game when it is literally an emulated game?
I've had my problems with emulators over the years. Sometimes with the emulation problems or accuracy and stuff like that. Like all those, like I mentioned, people that were too young to know what these games should look like. Some of those folks have gotten made fun of on YouTube. Like there was this one guy playing an N64 game, and the emulator messed up and was playing it like double speed. And he's like, "What's this game? It's too fast." And they're all making fun of him in their response video. And then of course there's everybody who played Superman 64 and the sky was purple because they used an emulator. Those kinds of crazy things. So,
yeah. I mean, now, not on top of all that, I feel like my tastes have also changed as well. Like, I mean, I can appreciate, um, a lot of older games, but I feel like game design in general has evolved, and like a lot of these older games have become harder for me to not more difficult, but like harder for me to bear because of like let's say, oh, this game has like no checkpoints, or there's no saving in this game, and like I want sometimes I just want to play a game and then drop it and come back later, and or let's say I play an hour or so and I die, and then all my progress is gone because the last save point was, literally an hour ago. So
Mhm.
I mean, like I don't know. I feel like my tastes have also changed because of the evolution of game design has become more accessible at this point.
Yeah, I do some of that too, but I've never been a collector, so to speak. I always buy games because I actually want to play them. There are some people on YouTube that just want the big bookshelf. I'm not one
Yeah.
of them. When I went and sought out like Cruisin' World or Off-Road Challenge on the N64 this past summer, or even Rad Racer on the NES, it's because I wanted to play those games again and actually play through them because I didn't have a chance to play them as a kid or something like that, or they were my favorite rental games and I just want to have them for real. So that kind of thing too. Of course, I do have a backlog to play through, but hey, what do you know? It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, like I also, I'll watch Classic Game Room, and they'll
Yep,
talk,
me too.
they'll show, every once in a while they'll show an older game because they do both retro and current games, and it's like, hey, they show something, it's like, man, that's pretty cool. Would be nice to try it out for a few minutes, but I really have no interest in actually purchasing the game and playing that game long term. Long term.
Yeah, so, and as you can imagine, this kind of thing, like I mentioned earlier with the trolls, it brings naysayers. So let me just rattle off my responses to some of these arguments that I keep hearing from people in comment sections on YouTube. Not that I really shouldn't be paying this much attention to some of the stuff people post in these comment sections, but just to be fair about it. First thing they say is, "Whoa, it's supply and demand, stupid." And my response to that would be, if supply and demand could explain these prices, how come this is a recent thing? It should have been gradually going on since these consoles' heyday. I mean, why are we seeing a spike on NES in the last couple of years when the console's been out of the mainstream as far as being latest and greatest since the mid-1990s? And there's another one I hear. People grew up and want their collections back. Well, show me there's a proof that this is a 1-to-1 ratio. I mean, you've been out of the loop for these retro games for a couple of years, and there's other people too that they kind of grow up and move on. They don't end up wanting this back. I usually hear this from people that own game stores that are making apology videos or something like that on YouTube. Oh yeah, we have our high prices because everybody wants their old Nintendo back again. Yeah, well, I know a couple of people around here who are like that, but they're nowhere near the majority of folks who played these systems when they were little. A lot of people just want their PlayStation or something like that nowadays. They don't want to go back and seek out an old Nintendo and fix it up. So, also, this is also caused by the whole retro collector thing being a niche with the widespread ability of emulation and the peripherals market that's catered to it, like those Retrobit USB controllers. I bought the NES one. I bought the NES style one to play Shovel Knight with, so because it reminded me of a Nintendo game so much. But that's the thing, you got all these people. Sometimes people that are getting gouged actually get made fun of. Oh, why don't you just use an emulator? Which is the next thing they say. Emulation issues aside, like the purple Superman sky, this plays right into the idea that emulation is due to market failure rather than legal failure. What I mean by that is there's this guy up in Canada. He said that when people do stuff like emulate or download software or something, they're doing it because the market hasn't provided a way for them to get it at what they would consider a fair price. Not so much. I mean, there are people out there that just don't want to pay for things, but there are some folks out there who end up doing this kind of thing as like a last resort. I think you might have touched on that, and with what you were talking about with some of these older games on Classic Game Room.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, the like I was you know, I'm subscribed to several YouTube channels, like IGN being one of them, and IGN will post trailers for, you know, new releases and stuff like that. And these past 3 weeks, like they would post a trailer for one of the uh, Game Boy Advance Castlevania games. Like Circle of the Moon came out 3 weeks ago. Then last week it was Harmony of Dissonance, and then this week it's Aria of Sorrow. And all three of those games are games I played back when I had GBA, and they were really awesome. And it's like I'm watching the trailer, I'm like, this takes me back, and I really want to play these games, but they're just so expensive now. And I don't know, but you know, like as far as like emulation goes, I mean, a lot of people just don't want to, like, you know, they don't want to use emulation, either A, because you know, like you said, it's not, sometimes emulation has problems, but B, people want to play the game legit. Like they want to, you know, they want to fork over their money for something that they enjoy.
The big one for me is Japanese games that never saw U.S. release, like Seiken Densetsu 3, considered by many RPG fans to be the real sequel to Secret of Mana instead of Secret of Evermore. This game came out in the mid-1990s, which is why it was never brought over to the U.S., because the Super Nintendo was kind of on the decline by then. So, but it's largely considered a classic RPG from the 90s nowadays. Why is that, even though it came out around the similar time as Chrono Trigger? The reason why is because there's a fan translation out there and folks have played the ROM. That's it. Yeah, or you can actually get a reproduction cart nowadays, which is basically spending $60 for a ROM. They'll just put it on like an old Shaq Fu cartridge or something like that, and put a nice label on it and stuff.
That's similar to Earthbound, not Earthbound, sorry, Mother 3, the sequel to
Mother
Earthbound.
games.
Yeah, Mother 3 never came out in United States, and like fans keep begging Nintendo to release it, but they won't. So like they resort to playing the emulated English hack.
See, my concern with reproduction carts is, what if they're like counterfeit GBA games where they're badly built, or they have a flash chip and they have a backup battery, and when the battery goes dead, the whole thing gets wiped? So you'd be spending pretty much the cost of a AAA title for a game that emulators with translation patches have been taken care of for years, and have it blank out on you? Well, so, you know, there's a whole gray area of, you know, it's a cartridge for a game that was never released and stuff like that, and you won't be able to sell it at any secondhand places or anything, because they'll be like, hey, that's a repro card. It's not legit. You know, they'll treat it like counterfeit merchandise or something. So, yeah, that's my concern with that. The last naysayer argument we should respond to is the classic, oh, everyone's worth whatever someone will pay for it. I'll believe that. I'll believe that when people say this stuff, when they perfectly apply it to themselves, when they're on the receiving end of it. You know, is it always worth what someone will pay for it? I mean, part of one of the pillars of human civilization is helping each other out and, you know, service to one another and stuff like that. Even if we get greedy from time to time. I mean, if buyer and seller couldn't agree on something, for example, when a buyer and seller haggle and negotiate, and the seller ends up coming down and the buyer ends up going up, you know. Are they really, or something like that, are they really, is it really what someone would pay for it if they were originally going to pay less? No. Is it really worth that? Does that statement even hold any water?
Mm-hmm.
The very presence of negotiation pretty much ruins all of that.
Yeah.
I suppose we should wrap this topic up. I do have some ideas for solutions, though. One of them would be a clear differentiation between what's collectible and what's a second-hand game. So these no-label cartridges at the store in my area that are overpriced because the condition's terrible, yeah, let's quit that. But retro gaming lacks this, largely due to something I'm sure you're familiar with. Many cartridge gamers didn't keep the boxes and manuals back in the day. So There's no standard. Nope, yeah, I'm guilty of that too, although I do have a few box copies I'll probably be selling at some point of old N64 games and stuff like that.
Well, but, in my case, we bought like all the games secondhand to begin with.
Right, and they were already gone.
Yeah, so they were already gone. I mean, like, well, we did buy Atari 2600 games firsthand. from Big Lots, and I tried keeping the boxes at first, but we ended up getting like these large boxes full of cartridges from like garage sales and yard sales. So it's like, well, time to add these in the collection. Don't need the the actual individual boxes anymore.
Yep, that was me too. A lot of people think the Atari was a 70s console because pre-video game crash and it came out in 1977, but it was still alive and kicking in the 80s. It got re-released as the Atari 2600 Junior, and then the 7800.
Yeah, that's what I had.
My first console, the ill-fated 7800. Most people who got a 7800 wanted to play 2600 games. It was basically if you couldn't afford a Nintendo, you had an Atari, and that was me.
I was playing 2600 in the early 90s.
Oh yeah, me too. I actually got my last 7800. My last brand new Atari game was Dig Dug on the 7800 that I got in Christmas of '91. So yeah, so I know I know what that's like, and people are like, well, you don't have the Nintendo, because back then all you had was $100 consoles and $50 first-hand games. Stuff wasn't around long enough to start showing up in yard sales because people wanted to get rid of it, and we certainly didn't have this trade-in culture where you got these kids these days that are trading games like baseball cards, $60 on a AAA title, and they're trading it into GameStop the next week because they're sick of it already. That kind of thing. Oh man, if I had done that back in my day, I would have been lucky if I got anything for Christmas after that. Yeah. Or even my birthday, for that matter. What we need is we need a clear distinction to solve this problem. We need a clear distinction between collectibles and secondhand games. Because of the whole box thing, there isn't much of that for cartridge. We need some of that for CDs and stuff too. And same thing, kind of the reverse, because now it's so easy to keep things complete in box. But I know GameStop has loose PS2 games and stuff. Complete in box and sealed copies, they are rare, so yeah, jack the prices through the roof. Most of the folks who would buy something in that condition probably aren't interested in playing as much as they just want it to sit on the shelf and look nice. But the reverse should be true for loose carts, especially the ratty fixer-uppers that I've been seeing locally. Gamers buy them to play them. Sometimes they literally don't care what it looks like. They just want to pop it in the system and play the game, or play the game again if they played it as a kid. So there's not enough of a differentiation between those prices. Then there's gamers themselves having standards. Individuals getting ripped off. Individuals need to get informed to stop getting ripped off and giving these gougers reasons to keep gouging. Like, well, play something else if no one's going to be reasonable, especially when they have a large backlog of games they haven't been playing that they're already embarrassed about. Excuse me while I look in the mirror. So, and probably the best way to solve this would be the official acknowledgement from the game companies and the rights holders of companies that no longer exist. Whoever ends up with the rights to stuff, like more compilations, official emulation like Nintendo eShop, Xbox Live Arcade, more re-releases. I actually have a PC re-release of Castlevania and Contra that Konami released about 10 years ago. It's basically an emulator that came in an NES-style box, and it plays all the NES Castlevanias and all the NES Contras. Really nice compilation. We need to see more of that. Sega Genesis collection on the PS3, the Capcom collections on PS2, all over the place. If we talked about emulation, resorting to emulation being a market failure thing earlier. Well, if there's more ways to play the games legit, even if the official hardware is hardware, you don't want to learn Japanese for a game like Seiken Densetsu 3, why not have something official? Support from whoever owns the rights to the gouger games, either provide alternative ways of playing them or diluting the gouger's potential profits. Earthbound on the Nintendo eShop is a huge example of this. Triple-digit game. I don't mind paying $30 for Earthbound, even if it's digital only, because I know it's a good game. But what I don't want to pay is $300 or something like that, because all these eBay scalpers are going around. Oh yeah, well it's a rare vintage video game. Or better yet, how about counterfeits? There were counterfeit Earthbounds going around eBay at one point.
I'll tell you what. Like I mentioned the Castlevania games for GBA earlier. When I first got Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, which was the third game on the GBA, the third and final game on the GBA, and I was looking for it on eBay, and I noticed how expensive that game is. It was probably the worst selling of the GBA um, Castlevania games, but it was also like the best rated one as well, and it was because it was the worst selling, it was really hard to find, like even like, you know, a year or two after the game came out. So I was looking on eBay for this game, and I was noticing how expensive it was. Like, I can't remember. It was like ridiculous, like 60, 50, $70, stuff like that. And I found one guy that had a bunch of copies for like $10. I was like, this is amazing. So I ordered it from him, and I got it, and like the condition was great, but like there was two things that threw me off. One, the color of the cartridge was a little bit lighter, like the shade of gray was a little bit lighter than the rest of my GBA games. Two, the thing that really threw up some red flags is the fact that
fit.
No, it fit. It definitely fit, but like the box, he sent me the box, but it was like a flat without any creases at all. It was like as if it got printed out onto cardboard paper. So I was supposed to like fold the box myself.
The Game Boy Advance is one of the hottest targets for counterfeiters right now because of this kind of stuff that's going on. People still want to play those games. This is a perfect time for Nintendo to strike a deal with Konami and put these games on the eShop, because they have Virtual Console, they have GBA support on there now.
I definitely figured that the game was probably counterfeit, but I wasn't upset because the game worked. The third and final thing that made me that pretty much confirmed to me that the game was counterfeit was like a week or two later that eBay the eBay seller was gone.
Like, there's a Final Fantasy, I think it's Final Fantasy VI Advance. The Final Fantasy VI Advance for the Game Boy Advance, obviously.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VI Advance, there's some counterfeits on eBay that have characters on the label from the wrong Final Fantasy game. So, just goes to show people will buy anything these days. It's crazy.
Yeah. But let's wrap this up.
Yes.
You got anything else to say before we move on?
No, that's basically it. Just hope you didn't mind too many R's regarding retro gaming ruining rip-off resellers.
All right, let's move on and get to gaming news. Now, this first the first two are from you.
Right.
The first one is about it's related to Gamergate, and I at first I was paying attention to Gamergate, but like eventually I just lost interest. I feel like we actually had a podcast episode when this first started, talking about Zoe Quinn and her relationship with the Kotaku journalist. We talked about that, and but like I feel like this whole thing exploded into like just name calling and eventually harassment, and it has molded into something completely different. Now is
toxic abusive behavior.
Yeah, am I off on this, or?
I think it's not only is that going on, but it's actually being exploited, because there's no leadership, no real leadership, no real accountability. So someone can just pretend to be Gamergate or something like that and do all kinds of crazy stuff. It's kind of like how when YouTube first put in like the copyright thing for DMCA takedowns, and people pretended to be other people in order to get people they hated taken down for copyright infringement. I mean, if there isn't accountability, systems like that never work. So.
Yeah, I mean, like, one of the people that was like on the side that was against the corruption of journalism, YouTuber named Mundane Matt, because his video was flagged by Zoe Quinn because he was like criticizing her and her relationships with the 5 people, and. Like I watched his videos for like a little bit, but I stopped because I mean, like during this all these events were going on, I was watching to see what he had to say, but then I stopped watching it because I felt like he took it too far with his life, because like in one of his videos he was saying that this is a war and we have to stand up against the corruption of journalism, and like him repeatedly saying the word a war, like I I feel like he took it way too far at this point, because there are wars in real life happening right now, right this minute. There are actual people dying, right this minute, and this guy is saying that we're having a war against, corruption in game journalism. Like you at that point, I was like, dude, you gotta chill.
First world problems.
Yeah. You need to get your priorities straight. So that's when I just stopped. I stopped watching his videos, and I just wanted to back away from this whole thing completely.
Yeah, I think he's a for-profit troll who's trying to make AdSense revenue or something off of flame baiting and getting fights going and stuff. I've seen some of that with the Archfiend too. But this first story that we should probably actually get to, Felicia Day, of all folks, spoke out, or gave her thoughts, I should say, on Gamergate, expressed fears for her own safety, so the tone was, I'm afraid. She got doxxed within the hour. Somebody under some Gamergate-looking name posted her address and stuff like that, and of course, this is the kind of stuff that I really can't stand. I don't, the whole ethics thing is one thing, and any movements about, speaking out about stuff is another. But the whole doxing and swatting thing that I've been hearing about in recent months, it's ridiculous. It hurts. At least I put down that it hurts others, at least emotionally, because there's plenty of potential for it to hurt them in other ways too, like swatting. You familiar with that?
Yes.
Where somebody, they call someone phones something in and gets a SWAT team sent someone's. It's not funny. First of all, it's a big waste of tax money. You're talking tens of thousands of dollars being blown because of a fake call that the authorities don't have the luxury of, wondering whether it's real or not. They got to respond to it. And in the case of swatting, it literally murders people's pets in some places, because it's actually standard procedure for SWAT teams to shoot dogs on sight and stuff like that. So it really depends. I think it depends on the district or something like that. But yeah, I think the big thing is, once again, the internet is getting too far ahead of the rest of society and rules and stuff, and we got to make it to where online actions have more offline consequences. Because I don't follow the Gamergate thing too much, because I do think a lot of it is hot air, like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But it was one thing when you had a scandal with Zoe Quinn. And it was another thing that you had Anita Sarkeesian's, I don't want to say hot-blooded, but, hot-headed feminist stuff, really being passionate about her beliefs and stuff like that. When that ticks people off, I can understand that. But what did Felicia Day do? Have too many episodes of The Guild back in the day? I mean,
yeah,
is she too geeky? Is she too much Madam Geek and Sundry these days? What?
Like you have
I didn't believe
people.
It was her.
You have people on the side of the Gamergate side. First and foremost, I want to put this out there. Like, stop putting the word "gate," like behind another word, just conspiracy related. Some kind of conspiracy. Like, do you know what Watergate was? Watergate was a hotel. Watergate Hotel. Like, stop putting the word "gate" behind things just because it's a conspiracy or whatever, conspiracy theories behind it. Well,
now we just need a big scandal about gates, so we can call it Gate, and then a scandal about the scandal, so we can call it Gate, and see how far it goes.
Well, like that's a side rant, but I mean, you have people on that Gamergate side that are saying, no, this is not about us being sexist. This is about ethics and journalism. But then you have people who are on that side who are also like harassing. Wrong. It's like, yeah, you are doing the harassment, but like I also feel like the other side has been in the wrong as well, because there's been people who've been writing articles like saying, oh, all gamers are sexist and misogynistic. It's just gotten it's a huge headache, and I don't know, I stopped paying much attention to it, and I can't escape it either, because I have a lot of people on my Facebook feed who I've met like in GDC and who are actual game developers, and they're posting about this stuff, and it's showing up on my Facebook feed. So, and also I follow people on Twitter, showing up on my Twitter feed. So even though I've been not wanting to pay much attention to it, it's like it's there. It's all over the place.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, and the big thing that bothers me about this is the abusive behavior and the potential for people to get hurt because of what? Someone got mad on the internet or something? Walk away from the darn computer. You know, how many times have I seen internet arguments become these heated Armageddon arguments or Armageddon-muments or whatever word you want to make up to call them that. Big end. The world's going to end if I don't win this argument. Then it's all over, and they all just walk away from their computers believing what the heck they already believed when the argument started to begin with. No change. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, there are times where I get into a debate with somebody about something on the internet, and they just keep on replying, and I just stop. It's like, okay, you want to have the last word? I don't even care to reply to you anymore, so go ahead, have the last word. If that makes you feel like you won the debate, I don't even care because I don't know who you are. I don't know. I've never seen your face before. Whatever. This doesn't even matter.
LMFAO, noob! I win! You fail! Let me stroke my ego, yeah! Well, that kind of sums it up with how some of these folks are. Yeah. Hopefully we can see less of this. I mean, I'd like to know what exactly Felicia Day did that was so incendiary that people wanted to dox her within an hour. I mean, that's what doesn't add up. What did she ever do? She's not going around with this incendiary stuff and giving all these speeches and picking apart picking apart Assassin's Creed, looking for sexism in a game that takes place in the 1700s or something like that. She's not doing this kind of stuff. Where's the scandal with her? Where's the issue with her?
Yeah, I mean, I will say I'm not really a fan of her or anything. Like I don't know what she's done other than like.
She never struck me as that kind of person. Just goofy doing YouTube videos.
As far as I know, like as far as what I know about her, she seems like a nice person. So, but other than that, I don't know anything about her, and I don't get why. It doesn't make sense.
Does not compute. Let's move on.
Yeah.
The other one I want to talk about, it's not as current with the news. It's more of an October 2014 thing. But earlier in the month, you remember the whole irate gamer thing and stuff like that from back in the day on YouTube?
Yeah.
He finally did a huge 39-minute video finally talking about the AVGN and how he was inspired by it. And there's so many people that are kumbayaing the guy, and they're like, oh, isn't that... He finally admitted that he took some ideas from James. And it's actually people that... they wanted. Well, it's nice that they're willing to bury the hatchet, but I just think it's too little, too late, and the whole thing stinks of a guy who's trying to tie up loose ends because he has nothing left to lose. I mean, the story arc for his show has concluded. For all I know, he's probably retiring the character. If he wanted me to take him seriously with finally clearing the air of this mess, he should have done it back when people were getting banned on YouTube because of all the stuff that was going on. Like all the goofball flagging and stuff like that, the copyright stuff, deleting comments. When people were getting banned, who otherwise wouldn't have been, he should have done something. But instead, he just wrote it out, made what money he could from it. And now, yeah.
I haven't really been paying much attention to him at all, or James Rolfe. Like I heard his movie came out recently.
Yeah, it's available on Vimeo. I'm waiting for the Blu-ray, though, before I actually get around to seeing it. I know it's a tacky-looking movie because he wanted to make something that looked like an 80s action movie with no CGI. But I think some of the wind got knocked out of the sails by the Atari thing that actually took place in the desert, so now it's more like fan fiction about it or something. Made me wonder what happened that now they actually found those cartridges, even though, yeah, people knew they were buried out there. It was in the news and everything, but...
Yeah.
I guess he gets to embellish that old urban legend and make a nice movie out of it, but I still haven't seen the Nerd movie yet. I'm waiting for the Blu-ray release, and that'll be that with that. I don't feel like buying it twice. So
I don't know. Like at this point, I just lost interest because I mean, how long has it been since he first started? And when he did first start, I was I found his video is entertaining, but over time he's just using the exact same jokes over and over and over. Like he just, he has his same catchphrases he keeps saying, and it's like.
I think he's pulling a Nintendo. He's afraid if he changes too much, people are like, "What's this?" Kind of like Mario 2, Zelda 2, Castlevania 2, something like that.
I suppose maybe that.
When you watch a nerd episode, you pretty much know what you're getting. I'm just glad he's not doing 2 a month anymore, because if he is gonna kind of try not ride this thing out as far as it goes. I mean, it's good that he has like one every month or two or something, instead of, oh, we get reminded of the same old jokes every 2 weeks. But some of the stuff he's been making fun of, though, he did one about Beetlejuice on the NES. If you ever played that, so I actually think he could have gone into more detail making fun of Beetlejuice, but. Anyways, yeah, so the irate gamer finally, too little too late, cleared the air of everything that everyone ever got mad at him for, but I think it's just that he waited until he pretty much had no more potential to really drag this out any further. So
yeah. All right, so we'll move on to and then I'm gonna screen share. There we go.
All right, let's go for it.
All right, so here's the first article that I have chosen, which is basically talking about the Oddworld, the remake, it's called Oddworld New and Tasty, and it came out on PS4, and it was supposed to come out next on the Wii U, and after that, like everything else, basically 360, Xbox One, PS3, Vita, PC, Mac, Linux, Atari. Everything. So, but this article talks about why it hasn't come out yet, other than the PS4. Now, I'm not like an Oddworld fan. Like I've played the original, and I thought it was a pretty difficult game, and I didn't get to beat it. But I found this article to be interesting because what they mention as to why it hasn't come out yet on anything other than the PS4 is because they were stuck on the Wii U version. Basically, they're having trouble developing it for the Wii U because for the Wii U they need to keep in mind of the 8 GB model.
Oh yeah, that piece of junk.
Yeah, and this is a downloadable game. This is not a disc-based game. This is you buy it from the what's the Wii U virtual store, whatever
Nintendo
it's called. eShop.
But I'm thinking the old Xbox 360s with only a couple of gigs in them. I mean, why is this a problem now? We've had consoles like this before.
Yeah. So this game is 4.5 gigabytes. And basically, what the article states is that the Wii U operating system takes up a big chunk of the 8 GB model's internal memory, and they said that unless the compression is achieved, to get it to fit on the 8 GB model and work well, unless that happens, the only way to play the game would be through an external device. And if that's the case, then they can't sell the game on the Wii U. So this basically comes down to Nintendo creating this issue with downloadable games to begin with on their device, because the fact that if a developer wants to make a game, a downloadable game for the Wii U, it has to work on the 8 GB model. And I feel like this is one of many reasons as to why you don't see many developers making games, even downloadable games, for the Wii U. Jay, do you have a Wii U?
Yeah, and it's not the 8 gig one because I knew that one was rubbish. I have one of the 32 gig ones.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just.
I don't know if you could even get the 8 gig model anymore. It's kind of like a launch year type thing. No, it's all Target bundles around here. Get the Mario and Luigi one, or the Mario Kart one, or the upcoming Smash Brothers one. But the 8 gig, yeah, I haven't even seen the 8 gig one anymore. I don't even think it is even still being sold. But
I
yeah,
don't even know. I
it
haven't
was a big
looked at
mistake.
Wii's
What
or
really
Wii's.
what Nintendo should have done though is for the 8 gig model they should send out an OS update so you can put an SD card in there and use the SD memory at least if you don't want to use plug-in drives. But the problem is the SD slot is mostly a Wii emulation thing for running Wii games in backward compatible mode. Hopefully this is something they can patch out though, so that SD slot, because SD cards are kind of like the new floppy disks. So put something, expand the memory that way, and you won't ever have to worry about your external USB key always being plugged into the thing.
Yeah, I mean, like the way how I see it with this developer in particular. I mean, they didn't mention this or anything, but I can imagine them actually canceling the Wii U version if it comes down to it, because of the fact that they're spending so much of their time and resources on trying to get this to work, and if they can't get it to work, then no one's going to buy their game anyways, or at least fewer people than what they were going to have, and they're going to make more money off the other systems anyways.
One of these years, Nintendo will decide they've had enough of making Mario boxes and make something competent. Assuming consoles even stick around, though.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't just morph into like tablet plus.
Yeah. So moving on to the next article, Far Cry 4, which is a game that I'm actually looking forward to because I really liked Far Cry 3. I thought it was really fun.
Skyrim with guns.
Yeah, exactly. It was like my Skyrim.
I know
you like
for Skyrim. Actually, there is a tropical mod for Skyrim, so people would often download it and be like, "Hey, look, Viking Far Cry."
Nice. But anyways, this article talks about the season pass, and there are a few interesting things to mention off this. One being the fact that the season pass is going to add a player versus player gameplay mode, some kind of, I don't know if it's going to be deathmatch or something along the lines that will have players going against each other. That's within this $30 season pass. And the other thing is that there's going to be like day one DLC that's going to be attached to this season pass as well.
DLC.
Yeah. First,
I'm already laughing that it's a game that obviously looks like a shooter, but it's got you need to buy PvP in the game. Oh man, if they tried this when Quake 3 Arena or Unreal Tournament were first breaking ground.
Mm-hmm. Like my first opinion I want to share regarding the PvP is I'm actually fine with that, with them selling the PvP separately, because when I played Far Cry 3, it had like a co-op mode that was different from the single player mode. The single player was like this open world map, and I don't even know what the co-op was. It was not using that same map. It was something completely different. I didn't even try it out. Most of my friends didn't even try it out. From what I heard, it wasn't that great to begin with. I played Far Cry for the open world, doing the missions and having fun. And if they focus on making a good single player game and they sell me that, then I'm perfectly fine with Far Cry 4 being just a single player game. If they use resources that to eventually make a PvP and release that later on, and people are interested in that, and they those people can buy it. I'm perfectly fine buying a single player game for this single player only. But the whole having day one DLC, I think that is still ridiculous. It's been a problem in the industry for a while, and it's I don't like it because they're using up resources while the game is in production to make to sell something additional that could have been in the original the original package to begin with.
Yeah, like PvP mode.
Well, I mean, like
What's one of the things?
the day one DLC is not the PvP mode. It's like the
Yeah, I know,
Yetis
but I'm
and
kind
other
of
stuff.
lumping it. I'm kind of lumping it in because I mean, I'm just seeing this screen cap of someone reloading a gun, and I'm thinking shooter, but you have to pay extra to PvP. Ugh.
Well, I mean, like,
Battlefield, it ain't.
uh, I think more developers should focus on making the game as good as possible for what it is trying to do. Like, for example, Wolfenstein: The New Order is just a single player game, and I'm fine with that. Like, because Machine Games, who are there used to be Starbreeze games, and now they be the people few of the developers left Starbreeze to make Machine Games. Starbreeze was never good at making any multiplayer game. Like, they put a multiplayer game in one of their games and it was pretty bad, but the single player was always really good. So, when they made the new Wolfenstein game, they decided, okay, let's just make this a single-player game, and I'm perfectly fine with that. If a developer knows that they're going to make one mode really good, it's better than tacking on a poorly made mode onto that game, like Spec Ops: The Line, which was a shooter that had a great single player, but had this terrible tacked-on multiplayer mode, which resulted in the game getting lower review scores. But so like I'm perfectly fine with developer trying to say, hey, we don't need to tack on this mode that the game doesn't need. But as far as like, hey, let's sell this thing that could have been in the original game, like this gun or this car or this Yeti could have been in the original game. Let's sell it as extra on day one. Now that is just, come on now. Like I feel like additional content should be developed after the initial game is developed. After the initial game is developed and released, whatever they make afterwards is fine. But if they make it before the games come out, why didn't that content come out with the game?
Are you
That's how I
listening,
feel
EA?
about
Are you listening, EA? Don't do day 2 DLC just to get rid of day 1 DLC.
it. Now you're giving them ideas.
Yeah, on how not to do the wrong thing, because you just said, yeah, no, have what you were working on be available when it launches, and then work on stuff afterwards. Makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. You still there?
Yep, still here.
Okay, alright. Thought you cut out for a second. So, you got anything to add on this before we move on to the next article?
Nah, maybe I was just spoiled by Unreal Tournament or something. I tend not to think of, PvP in a shooter type game as being tacked on afterwards.
Well, like, with, like, Unreal Tournaments, I mean, that was basically a multiplayer game only. I mean, like, it didn't really have a single-player campaign other than... I mean, the single-player for Unreal Tournament was
Play through
basically...
all the levels.
Yeah, you run through the multiplayer levels with bots. And the Quake games, when they got to Quake 3, that's what it was as well. It was basically a multiplayer-only game, but the single-player was the maps, but with bots. So I don't feel like it's anything new to have a game if you want for a developer to just focus on a multiplayer only game, or a developer to focus just on a single player only game. But I feel like if a developer can do both modes, single player and multiplayer, then that's fine. But if they're really good at doing one or the other, then they should focus just on that.
Yeah,
That's how I feel.
We'll see how the game does.
Yeah. Still looking, just not going to get the season pass. So let's move on to the next article I got on here. So there's this game called Paranautical Activity. It came out on Steam recently. I mean, it's been on early access for a while. It's been on Desura for a while. It's basically a First-person shooter roguelike game where each room is randomized with random enemies. Death is permanent. Once you die, you have to start a new game. So that's what makes it a roguelike. Um, so it came out recently, like out of early access, but it was still mislabeled as early access. The fans of the game, they were like tweeting at one of the developers saying, "Oh, you're trying to rip us off. You're trying to tell us that this game is out of early access, but it still is. It's still not a finished game." And so basically, this guy, Mike Malbec, he basically goes to Twitter and he writes, "I'm going to kill Gabe Newell. He is going to die," which was a huge mistake. Valve pretty much, "Hey, this guy made a threat to one of our employees. We're no longer doing business with him." So they pulled the game from Steam. It is no longer available on the Steam store, though if you own the game already, you still have access to it. It's just if you don't own it, you cannot buy it. So eventually, like he was like, "Oh, I was just kidding. I wasn't being serious." And then later he ended up stepping down from the company, selling his shares to his now former partner, and basically saying, "I no longer have anything to do with the company. Please do business with him. I have no longer, I no longer have anything to do with this game anymore." First and foremost, you don't want to make death threats to anyone online. I mean, doesn't matter if it's Gabe Newell or, some random person. You don't want to make death threats. I mean, that's first and foremost. But on top of that, you don't want to make a death threat with the person that is running the company that is running the store that your game is provided on.
Right.
So I mean that was a big mistake, huge mistake. Like it's completely unprofessional. Like I don't even know what was going through his mind, because he was pretty much saying that Valve is running a monopoly because of the fact that Steam is the biggest digital distributor for PC games, but that doesn't make them a monopoly. There are plenty of other places to sell games, like GOG.com. I mean, the game is also on Desura, Origin, yeah, like you just mentioned. But still, there are ways to contact Valve and say, "Look, can you get this finished? Can you get this fixed or whatever?" But instead, he decided to flip out on Twitter and make death threats.
I'm just wondering where gaming got so many hotheads like this from.
It's
kind of like, someone loses in Call of Duty or something like that. Next thing you know, you're getting nasty private messages or something like that. I even had something like that the other day. I basically did some world PvP in World of Warcraft. Some Death Knight was messing around somewhere, so my monk handed him his you-know-what. Next thing you know, I get a friend request on Battle.net, and it's the person that lost saying, "Thanks for killing me, perfectly necessary." I'm like, oh man, they're using Battle.net friend invites to whine because they lost. I'm gonna have to turn off friend invites. So anyways.
Maybe you should stop killing people.
If a problem can be resolved through the PvP system, well, no. It was basically it was in Outland. It was in the Burning Crusades area for like level 60 to 61, Hellfire Peninsula. Death Knight was chopping up NPCs in Honor Hold until my monk got over there, and yeah. This is before monks got redesigned, so it was, if you can't CC a monk, you pretty much, they're going to heal himself with everything they do. So
Yeah. But like as far as this thing goes, like they need to, especially game developers, who are trying to make a living off of their hard work, they need to present themselves more professionally. I mean, we saw Phil Fish pretty much destroy his career through Twitter, and this guy is, I mean, not quite as bad as Phil Fish, but well, I don't know, maybe it's arguably just as bad or maybe worse because of the fact that he made a death threat. You don't do that. That's a big
absolutely.
no-no. I don't know, man. I mean, like, well, half his statement is correct. Saying Gabe Newell's going to die because everyone's going to die. I'm going to die. You're going to die. We're all going to die eventually.
I think we're reading too much into this.
But yeah, this is just you don't say I'm going to kill this person. No. Let's move on. You got anything to add to this?
No, I do not.
All right. So last week I talked about the game that's called Hatred, made by Destructive Creations, and also shown an article that Destructive Creations is a development team full of like anti-immigration, anti-Islam, neo-Nazi group. And basically that article showed that, hey, this person likes this specific Facebook page, this person likes this specific Facebook page, etc., etc. And all those Facebook pages were like anti-immigration groups or some kind of a Polish anti-something group. Now the CEO of this company, not gonna try to say his name again. We'll go call him JZ, because that's
What?
his.
Oh, good.
That's his initials, JZ. So
Jaroslav Zelensky. There, I'll be the one that takes the risk that it's pronounced wrong.
all right.
Or we'll just run it through. We'll run it through like Google text to speech and see what Google says.
It would probably say it worse. So he basically says, as for me supposedly supporting Polska Liga Obrony, which is that's anti-Islam group on Facebook. On Facebook, I've liked this page because it's a source of information what is going on right now in the Middle East and Europe. And a lot of evil stuff is going on. Those are real problems, not our game. Some things media would not show nor tell, so no, I'm not any kind of supporter. So I mean, he mentions that. He also says that he doesn't watch TV, so the best way for him to get news is on the internet. So seeing his Facebook feed is more convenient than any other source. And then he also says that the group themselves, the Polska Liga Obrony, he says that they don't know I even exist, etc. So, one thing that I agree with as far as his statement is that, the people dying and the wars and stuff, those are the real problems, not his game. I mean, yeah, there are real world problems, like we mentioned earlier. With the first world problems, there are actual real problems in this world with war and all that. But as far as him saying, "Hey, I use this group as my source of getting news," like I call shenanigans on that, because that's like, okay, if you want to get I don't want to make this like a political podcast or anything, but if you want to get unbiased news, you don't go to a biased source.
Well, of course.
You don't say, oh, well, it's February, it's African American History Month. I want to learn more about African American heritage. I'll go to the local KKK. You see where I'm going with?
I was thinking serious news and going to the Onion for that, but yeah.
You don't go to the group that hates another group to get your news. That is, on one hand, he is correct that that TV, like he mentions that TV censors some of the really bad stuff. Like you don't see babies blown up, on
Right.
local American news. That is something that happens in real life. That is something you can see, that's happening in wars right now on the internet. But you don't go to the biased source for unbiased news. Like seriously, is this the best? His best excuse is that, oh, I want to be kept up to date on the news, so that's why I follow them on Facebook. Plus, as I mentioned last week, the other developers on the team are also following different, anti-whatever groups, whether it's anti-immigration, anti-homosexual, anti-whatever. Like, they are following other anti-groups. So, is that the same reason why they are following those groups, so that they can get the news? It's just shenanigans. I'm calling shenanigans on his his claim of being not a neo-Nazi group, and I still believe that their whole development team are neo-Nazis. Do you have any opinion on this, Jay?
No, not really. This is my first time seeing the whole article, so.
Okay. Yeah. Are you familiar with the Hatred game?
Nah, not really.
There
Been
was
playing too many.
Hatred got it got a trailer last week. It got announced and got a trailer, and basically this is a game in which you're playing as an angry guy who hates everybody, and you run around like a neighborhood, killing unarmed civilians and ill-equipped police officers, and people were. People's reactions to this trailer was, "Oh my God, this is going to be, this is going to like make video games look bad because they're going to say, it causes violence or whatever." And it was bad enough that Epic Games said, "Do not use the Unreal logo on this game," because they're using the Unreal Engine, and Epic Games straight up told them, don't use the Unreal logo anywhere on the game or in their marketing. But on top of all that, there was an article that pointed out that the development team are a bunch of neo-Nazis. So they're not just trying to make a game that is edgy and trying to make a statement or whatever, but they're also hateful people themselves. And I still believe that, despite what this guy says, that he's using this as a news source, which come on now. I'm not dumb.
I've heard of hate group video games before. That's one of the side effects of the mainstreamness of video games, if you want to put it that way. There actually are, hate groups that want to recruit with video games. I actually remember there was some kind of like game, I think it was called Ethnic Cleansing or something. I saw a Let's Play of it on YouTube, and it wasn't all that great of a game. They cared more about, what they were saying rather than whether the game was actually playable. So
yeah, shock value.
That's pretty much it. It's pretty much
Yeah.
one of the most infamous games out there, and on many people's lists of one of the worst games of all time.
All right, so let's move on. Okay, so comedian Rob Riggle is going to be Frank West in the Dead Rising movie, and Rob Riggle, as you can see here in the video, is this dude. Um, uh, what movies has he been in that's popular? 21 Jump Street and Let's Be Cops. I mean, this guy's in a bunch of movies, but he's usually like a supporting character. So I can't really think of any standout roles that he's done. Can you think of any, Jay?
Nah, not really.
Okay. I mean, like I'm familiar with this guy, and he's all right from what I've seen. He's usually like some kind of like an evil businessman type dude, because that's what he looks like. But as far as Frank West, yeah, he could pull it off. I think. I mean, he looks like Frank West. He has like the right body, right face. A little more on the movie itself. Basically, it's going to be co-written by is going to be written and co-produced by Tim Carter, who produced the Mortal Kombat Legacy series that's on Machinima, and he also wrote Sleeping Dogs, which are both things I like. I really liked Sleeping Dogs. It had a pretty decent story to it. I mean, it was more of a fun game, but the story was decent. Mortal Kombat Legacy was kind of cool. I mean, I always saw the first season. I didn't see the second season yet, but it was pretty cool. And this movie, the Dead Rising Watchtower, it's going to be called. It's going to debut on Crackle, which is Sony's streaming video service. There's no release date or release window that I can see, but I mean, if they got this dude, Rob Riggle, to play as Frank West, I can only assume that this is going to be more of a comedy than a serious movie, and I think it would work out with like the silly tone that Dead Rising has. I think it could work.
Something to keep in mind, though, when you're talking about typecasting actors, the original Phantom of the Opera from the stage show that's still going on Broadway, the original Phantom of the Opera was actually a comedian on British television before he went to such a serious role.
Huh.
So
okay.
yeah, Michael Crawford from the original production, playing a serious character like the Phantom, was a goofball comedian on British television. Everyone was shocked when they found out he was cast as that. So you don't know, you make sure you got to see how these actors pull things off. Sometimes they want to get away from whatever they were typecast as, or sometimes they do a movie where they want to stop being known as that, so they'll do something else as well. Like Kiefer Sutherland in Phone Booth. People thought he was a jerk because the character in that movie that he played was a total jerk. So he went to other stuff afterwards. But yeah, don't be surprised.
Jim Carrey has done a few serious roles.
Yeah, right. And then there's Will Smith in After Earth, one of the most charismatic actors in Hollywood, trying to play a guy with no charisma. With a name like Cypher Rage. Yeah, watch the honest trailer on that one.
But yeah, I'm not gonna say I'm excited for this announcement, but so far it seems promising. If that makes sense.
So, well, let's see what it becomes instead of judging before it comes out, because sometimes actors can surprise folks.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Sure.
Okay, so. The final article I have on here is about Uber Entertainment's Kickstarter for Human Resources, which is going to be their new RTS game. I've talked about this announcement when they first announced it last month, and talked about how I was kind of disappointed and doubted that they would even reach their goal. Basically, to fill you in, Human Resources is the premise of it. It's an RTS in which it's two apocalyptic forces, one being basically Cybernet, these robots, and the other one basically being Cthulhu, these tentacle, ancient Earth creatures, giant creatures, both battling it out. And instead of like gathering like minerals or whatever for resources, you gather humans for your resources. So that's why the game is called Human Resources. And I mentioned that I wasn't really happy with Uber Entertainment because of the fact that they pretty much like abandon their projects and move on to a new one before the project that they're currently on has basically met its potential or their goals at least. Like I was a big fan of their Monday Night Combat and Super Monday Night Combat games, and which are basically MOBA games but third-person shooters. And they promised, oh, we're going to add mod tools so that you, the community, can make new maps and create new content for this game. And that didn't happen. Both those games were stuck with only 5 levels, and they abandoned those games, and then they made Planetary Annihilation, and they had the Kickstarter, had $2.2 million raised for that game, and that game came out like a month before they announced Human Resources, and it came out with like low reviews. A lot of people were not happy with how that game turned out, and it seemed like they were moving on from that project before completely, finishing it. And now they have canceled the Kickstarter for Human Resources because at the rate that they have been going with this Kickstarter, it says that it is most likely they will not reach their goal. So instead of spending their time and money promoting this Kickstarter goal, because you got to keep in mind these guys are an indie development team, and they are game developers, not marketers, not professional marketers. So for them to come into the office every day and try to promote this Kickstarter for a month and not be able to reach their goal but still waste that entire month promoting, that's like a whole month wasted as far as getting production for anything going. So I can understand them canceling because they can't reach their goal. I mean, it's looking unlikely that they'll reach their goal. But personally, I feel like the reason why they are unable to reach their goal to begin with is because they've disappointed so many people with their past projects. And if the fans cannot rely on a developer to keep them satisfied, then how can a developer rely on their fans to support them on a project? Does that make sense?
Yeah, they really should finish what they started with stuff.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there are still people that, excluding myself, I'm not talking about just me, but there are still people who are very upset about how Monday Night Combat and Super Monday Night Combat went because of the fact that they pretty much they presented this very promising game with really cool features, very cool gameplay mechanics, but did not go all the way, making it a complete game, and basically abandoning the project before it's even done. So, and then it's like fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. A lot of those fans of Super Mario Combat also supported Planetary Annihilation because they were basically hoping that if Uber Entertainment is successful with Planetary Annihilation, that they will use some of that money to come back to Super Mario Combat and finish that up. No, that didn't even happen. They didn't even finish Planetary Annihilation. Like, I mean, they released it, but it's not what they originally said it was going to be. Like, it's still missing like a tutorial. It's still missing some features. So,
Finish what you started.
yeah, make your product as good as possible. Keep the fans happy, and then the fans will support you. They'll support you all the way.
Indeed.
You know, I mean, just look at Valve. Like they make solid products on release. They will continue to support their products after release, and that's why the fans will they will stand behind Valve. Because of the fact that they know that they'll get quality products when it releases. Don't know when it's going to release, but when it does release, it's going to be good. So that's all I got. Yeah, you have any other opinion that you want to add on top of this?
No, it's basically it. Just finish what you started, and don't tick people off. That should be basic by now. I don't see why it isn't.
Yeah. All right, back to me. Hello. So, anyways, we have no listener feedback this week. If you have any type of listener feedback, any questions, comments, if you have a suggestion for a main topic, write in to podcast@outofcontinues.com. We'll read your questions, answer them on the show, and we'll have a grand old time. Shoutouts and plugs. Jay, you wanna give some shoutouts to yourself? Plug your channel.
Yeah, I suppose. YouTube.com/multimediajay. Been on hiatus a bit with some stuff that's been going on, but I plan on getting back into things by the time the holidays roll around.
All right. I got two things to plug real quick. I'm gonna screen share again. Boom. Here we go. If you go to outofcontinues.com/TV podcasts, then you can find my podcast reviews on both the CW's Arrow and the Flash TV series, which I'm trying to do on a weekly basis. As I mentioned earlier this episode, we were unable to record this past week's episode 3 for Arrow Season 3 and Episode 3 for Flash Season 1, but we should be back on track next week. So if you watch either of those shows, or both those shows, better yet, check out outofcontinues.com/TV podcasts, or the link will be in the show notes. Or you can just go to outofcontinues.com and the link will be on the side. It will say TV podcasts. So that is one thing I want to plug. The other thing I want to plug is I got a Steam curator page. If you want to follow, I got 5 followers now. Awesome. That's one more follower than I had last week. If you want to follow Out of Continues, there will be a link in the show notes for the Steam curator page, and you will find games that I recommend. And all the games that I'm going to recommend, I'm going to try to add games each week that are good games. I'm not going to be adding games that are like, oh, this is an interesting game. Some of you might like it, most of you might hate it. No, I'm only going to recommend games that I feel like are very solid games, like Shadow of Mordor over here. Excellent game. Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, another excellent game. Just if you're interested at all, just follow, and I'll be adding more games that I think are awesome. And as usual, ooh, that looked dark. Anyways, as usual, I want to give a shout out to Nathan Becker, also known as Ectogemia. That's ECTOGEMIA. You can find him at facebook.com/ectogemia, soundcloud.com/ectogemia. He did the intro song if you are listening to the MP3, and he also has done the outro song that I'm going to be playing here in a minute. The song is going to be from the soundtrack of Beware the Bully, which is the game I made. and he did the soundtrack for that. So it's going to be one of those songs. So check him out if you like the music that you're hearing. If you're watching this on YouTube, sorry, no music for you. You got video. MP3 gets music. Jay, you have anything else you want to plug? Looks like you have a couple things.
Yeah, well, in light of today's topic, I want to plug the premier channel that I've been watching all this game hunting stuff on. That'd be Craigslist Game Finds. It's not actually affiliated with Craigslist. It's just a bunch of guys who started out doing retro game hunting and deals and stuff based on responses to Craigslist ads. So they're at youtube.com/Craigslist Game Finds. And then I want to give a special shout out to the Piano Guys who've been monopolizing my music player lately. They play classical crossover type music with, basically they take classical instruments and play like pop songs with them and stuff. Ooh, hit the mic. Anyways, so the Piano Guys recently hit 500 million views on YouTube between all their videos, and they've only been making music together on YouTube for 3 years. So that's some pretty awesome results there. Of course, they do make some pretty awesome music. So youtube.com/The Piano Guys.
All right. If you enjoy what you've been hearing, support us by liking us on Facebook, following us on Twitter, leave an iTunes review. You can contact by email, that's podcast@atticcontinues.com. Subscribe on YouTube, that's youtube.com/atticcontinues. All these can be found on the website, that's www.atticcontinues.com. You can also give me a tweet. I am at Sayed Stafa, that's SAYEDSTAFA. Jay, you have a Twitter?
Yes, I'm at Multimedia JAY.
Awesome. And I would like to thank my guest host for joining me today. Jay, how's it going?
Hey, glad to be part of the show again, finally. See you next year, folks.
With that said, I am your host, Stafa. Peace out, everybody.
Beast out.